Hello and welcome to another edition of Shaking Up Kenosha. My name is Jeff Roberts and I'll be your host for this series of programs. Today we have with us Ollie Nelson from Veteran Services here in Kenosha County. Welcome, Ollie.
Thank you, Jeff.
Tell us a little bit about the Veteran Services. When we think about veterans, what's a definition of a veteran?
You know, the definition of a veteran is a person that served in the military. You know, it could be the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard.
Right.
And member separated or was discharged from service and received a discharge other than a dishonorable discharge. And that person is considered a veteran.
Now, when we think about veterans, there are different categories of veterans. Kind of explain that to us a little bit.
Well, you know, there's various categories of veterans, and the two unique categories are a veteran who served during a war period, you know, or combat. You might refer to a veteran as a war veteran or a combat veteran. Then you have a peacetime veteran, a person who served during peacetime, served actually between wars.
Right.
For instance, you had the Vietnam War, then you had a period that before you get to the Gulf War. so you know the person that served between the Vietnam War and the Gulf War would be considered a peacetime veteran.
Or somebody served in between Grenada or Panama. The reason why I mention those is because they happen in between as well.
Absolutely.
Why is that really important to have a distinction
Well,
for veterans?
you know, I think the VA Veterans Affairs have more benefits that are available for veterans who served during war period.
Okay.
And so an individual that served during a peacetime might not be eligible for the non-service connected pension, but a person that served during a war period is eligible for that benefit.
Now, you have an office here in Kenosha County, and you're located out on Sheridan Road. What does that office actually do? It's not a Veterans Affairs office, but it's a Veterans office. What does it do?
In a sense, it's a Veterans Affairs office at the county level.
Okay.
So we're at the point of execution to help veterans obtain benefits, whatever benefit that might be. It could be disability compensation, it could be non-service connected pension, it could be educational benefits, home loan programs. So there's various amount of benefits that a veteran might be entitled to.
But yours is strictly a local office. You service Kenosha County.
Yeah, Kenosha County. We're responsible for approximately 13,000 veterans within Kenosha County.
That's all there are?
Yeah, right. Well, and this is from statistics of maybe 2014 surveys.
Yeah.
But we don't take in consideration the surviving spouse.
Right.
And so that number would probably increase from the 13,000, could be up to 15,000.
Or even more.
Or even more. Yeah.
Now, when you're assisting a veteran, and that's a big job, you can't do that by yourself. You got to have a staff to help you. So how big is your staff and what do they do?
Well, we have 3 full-time staff member that works out of our office, including myself. And I'm considered a county veteran service officer. I'm the director over the program, and I have an assistant who is the deputy county veteran service officer, Mike Roscoe, and then we have a veteran service representative, which is Jennifer Blassie. And those individuals process claims and do everything from A to Z when it comes to helping veterans with
kitchen
benefits.
sink.
Yep.
Kitchen sink. Now, when you think about that, I mean, is that sufficient to handle, let's say, 13 to 15,000 individuals?
We do our best. I mean, and we take care of our veterans that come to the office, and so I would say yes, sufficient.
Is there a number of volunteers that help you at the office, or is it just the 3 of you?
There's no volunteer, but we do sometimes occasionally get people that we have an opportunity to provide training, like an individual from DVR, disabled vocational rehabilitation. They might want to train a person to get back in the workforce, and if we have a desk that they can answer the phone and do basic clerical duties, then we'll afford them that opportunity.
And with that many people that you're servicing for Kenosha County, I imagine that does come up sometimes where somebody really needs to get back into the workforce pretty quick. What better way to start?
Absolutely, and they learn some skill set that afford them the opportunity to find a job maybe at the VA, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, or it could be at the county level.
Now, that brings up an interesting point when we think about the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. There's been a lot of discussion lately about that. But what's the difference between U.S. level Veterans Affairs and Kenosha level Veterans Affairs, other than size? Well, size and scope is huge, but...
You know, since I don't work for the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, I can advocate more for the veterans. You know, they don't pay us, you know, as the county pays me a salary to take care of our veterans within our county. So, you know, I can go and advocate more for the veterans and, you know, fight for benefits. And even if a veteran submitted a claim and it was denied, we can appeal those decisions through the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs.
So you're kind of that stopgap measure to keep them from falling through the cracks completely.
Absolutely. So I consider ourselves at the point of execution. So we fight to obtain benefits for veterans.
Now, there's an awful lot of, excuse me, programs that are available to veterans. You and I were talking off camera about a couple of them. One of them is a Blue Button Initiative. Why don't you tell our viewers what that is?
It's funny that you asked that question because I just learned about the Blue Button Initiative. It's a panel of advisors that actually advised the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs more in the areas of health care or medical, and they provide information that they can use strategically to plan to support and help veterans in the future.
Where you're the tactical piece, the actual spearhead, they get to do that strategically. So they're the ones who sit close to Washington or close to the Pentagon or close to Veterans Affairs, the offices themselves?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, talk to us about the state park program. I know that there's one in place, but what does it entail? Well,
the state park, if a veteran is disabled and they're rated at 70% or more, you know, they can get a free state park pass or whatever. And these are just morally state benefits.
Right.
These are the Wisconsin state benefit. And every state has their own benefits that take care of veterans. And each state is unique to their self. And but in a sense, the Wisconsin Department of Veterans Affairs do a pretty good job of helping veterans with benefits.
Now, there's also a program that's called Honor Flights. Now, Honor Flights has been in the news quite a bit lately because they just landed a couple of aircraft here at the Kenosha Airport, and they landed some at Milwaukee and so forth. But Honor Flights, how are you connected? How's your office connected with those?
You know, Honor Flight started with the World War II veterans, you know, and it's an opportunity to take those veterans up to Washington, D.C. to visit their memorial. And they have a memorial for World War II veterans, Korean War, Vietnam War. So right now they're focused more on the World War II veterans because those individuals are advanced in age. It could be in the late 80s and 90s. And we want them to get the opportunity to actually see their memorial in Washington, D.C. So that's what Honor Flight come about. So occasionally we do have a lot of family member that might call my office and ask, hey, how can I have my dad on Honor Flight, and how do you go about, you know, signing up for that? So we help him and assist him with that, with the information, and get him, you know, signed up for the flight.
Now, when we think about education benefits, that's one of the big things, the old GI Bill. For those of us who were around during the Vietnam War, it was go back to school on your GI Bill, buy your house, do something with that GI Bill. Don't let it slip away. What is there now? What kind of educational benefits are there now?
Well, you know, Jeff, it's funny that you asked that question because right now they have one of the most attractive educational benefits for our newer generations of veterans. It's called the Post 9/11 GI Bill.
Wow.
So any veterans that serve after September 11, 2001, you know, and they complete their term, they're eligible for the post 9/11 GI Bill, and that GI Bill pays for their full tuition. If they want to go to a private school where the cost of those classes might be beyond
significant,
it might be beyond what the VA can pay for, they have a yellow ribbon program which will the school would pick up the tab of the differences in classes, and not only that, they provide them basic allowance for housing, which depends on where you go to school. If you go to school in Chicago,
That could be
the
significant.
cost of living is much higher in Chicago, so you might be entitled to maybe $1,700 to $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
And if you go to Milwaukee, it might be average around $1,400 to $1,500 a month, depends.
So that benefit has been expanded greatly, but what else is involved in that benefit? Are there other things that the veterans can take advantage of?
Well, the educational benefit, I think, is the most important part. And I think that the initiative is, by making it so attractive, it encourages these veterans who return back home to go back to school. And not only that, they can carry that benefit over to their spouse.
Oh, okay.
If they have kids that wants to go to school, they can transfer some of those benefits toward those kids and spouses as well.
Yeah, that was the difference between the old GI Bill that I came in under. Yeah. Completely different.
Well, it's funny that you say the GI Bill you came in under. When I came into service back in 1982, they had a thing called a VEAP, Veterans Assistance, Veteran Education Assistance Program, and it was like $1 for $1. You put $1 and Uncle Sam matched you with $1, and it wasn't a very attractive educational program. So it only lasted for a few years, and then they switch over to the Montgomery GI Bill.
Yeah, the Montgomery GI Bill enhanced a lot of those programs.
Absolutely.
Too. Just before we take our break here in just a moment, when we think about how the military has changed and what has changed in society for the returning vets, if you're gone for 2, 3, 5, 10 years, things have changed quite a bit, haven't they? When they left, they had maybe a stable home, maybe not so stable. Now they come back, they've seen the world.
Yes.
How big of a transition is it for a veteran to walk out of the military, hang up the uniform for the last time, and now they're a civilian?
I think it's a really steep transition, and you know, I'm speaking from this the Navy standpoint, because I served in the Navy for 28 and a half years.
Right.
They have a transition assistance program, and a week-long program, and they kind of explain to you some of the things that you might encounter when you get out, and they help them with maybe writing a resume or how to do a job search. And you look at myself, for instance, you know, I spent 28 and a half years, and the first time I ever written a resume was after I retired from service. Yeah. So the first one you pretty much put together is not always the most perfect resume, so you might need help in those areas. Yeah. So it is, and then you have to be able to adjust back to, you know, from the military lifestyle to civilian lifestyle. And
that's a huge adjustment.
Absolutely.
That is huge. Well, we're going to take a pause for the cause, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're watching Kenosha Community Television.
Welcome back. We're here with our guest, Ali. And Ali, please tell us, we've had a chance to kind of get a feel for what Veteran Services does, but what's the very first step? Somebody walks in the door, they just retired from the military, or they just got out, they've got an honorable discharge, the ink hasn't even hardly dried yet. What's their first step? What do they have to do?
The first step, like you mentioned about the discharge, which we refer to that as a DD-214. We have to be able to verify that members served in the military, they have a discharge, which is other than dishonorable discharge. If you got a dishonorable discharge, there are probably no benefits available for
You're
that.
cooked.
You're done. You're pretty much, and so we have to verify that, and that's the first thing. Not only my office, but the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, they require that you have a copy of that DD-214, regardless if you have a military ID show that you retired from the military service.
Yeah, that was going to be my next one.
Yeah, oh, okay.
I walk in and I show you my DD Form 2A, and then you look at it and go, that's nice, however.
You have to verify, and they have to send a copy of the DD-214. That's the only way you can obtain
the very
benefits.
first step is to bring that in.
Yep.
And then after you've verified the identity of the person, now this is a soldier, a sailor, an airman, or a Marine, or Coast Guardsman who's, let's say, basically their life has been military. How do you get them to that point where they can transition over to being a civilian? Is there something that your team can do, or is it something that they really have to do on their own?
Well, we helped them. Our department or division helped them with resources that's available in the community.
Right.
The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs has a lot of resources, and could be counseling, it could be whatever, workshops that's available that you can get these individuals acclimated back into the community.
Mm-hmm. And it's a tough transition, isn't it?
It is. I mean,
well, you spent 28 years, so
absolutely. And I tell you what, it was a struggle at first because you spend most of your life. Now, I went into service when I was 21 years old, and I got out after 28 and a half years, and you start looking back because you got a lot of memories of serving in the military, and you have a lot of experience in the military. So
you've seen the world, but from a military perspective.
And so when you transition into the community, you're on sometime unfamiliar ground, and so you want to make sure that you know what to do. It could be anything with dealing with politics, which you're probably not accustomed to.
Yeah, but not equipped to deal with either. And it's a transition, and I know for me, and it was just strictly my experience. I found myself, when I retired from the military, I found myself walking down the sidewalk instead of on the grass. Yeah. Grass is verboten. I mean, you just didn't touch that grass. And I still do that. I'm out mowing the lawn, and I walk my bag of grass clippings down the sidewalk, or I'll square off a corner just like I was marching.
Absolutely.
And 9 to the front, 6 to the rear as I'm walking along. And how much of a transition do you see for that military person? Is it like that for them too, or is it just certain branches?
Well, I think it's for all branches. I mean, we have the military is a structured organization, and when you get out, there's certain things you have to do. And as you referred to, walking on the sidewalk, don't cut across the grass. It could be anywhere from, making sure that your gig line is squared away.
Yeah, that's correct. It's exactly right. That line right down your shirt, right to your belt, and make sure your belt's aligned.
Everything is even perfectly. And so, a lot of those basic things that we carry over into the civilian life. When I was on board ship, you have limited spaces. You can store, so you have to fold everything neatly in a certain way so you can utilize the space effectively, so you can get more things that you can store into your locker or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, see, we had duffel bags. Try to fold things nicely in that. We think about documentation. Now, the military evolves around documentation. Your DD-214, your DD-2A, I mean, any piece of paper that you've ever received from the military, you're always told, keep it.
Absolutely.
Don't throw it away. But there's been a lot of hacking, too. And when I retired from the Army in 1992, I was always told, go to City Hall, register my DD-214. But with all the hacking that's going on, is that really a good idea?
Well, I think, I know some veterans might feel a way, do I need to put my military life in the hands of, the county and registry of deed? But we had never had any problem in that area. A copy of your DD-214 is safely kept in the registry of deeds office. I also keep a copy in my office. With technology, a lot of those things are scanned and put into computer database, and sometimes they're in the cloud. So if your office burnt down, you don't have to worry about those DD-214 being destroyed or things of that sort. I think back in 1973 they had a major fire down in St. Louis where a lot of the Korean War veterans DD-214 were destroyed. So my take on that is, if we can scan those documents and protect them, I feel much safer.
So you don't think that identity theft is that much of a problem?
I've never seen, as far as I'm concerned, I've never seen it to be a problem, and I don't see that in the future of it being a problem. I think we're going to get smarter and wiser. And we're able to protect those documents. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion on that.
Sometimes, the take is that, we'll be able to do that in the future and the technology will catch up. But then I think about identity theft and how serious a problem it is. And it's a serious problem for Social Security numbers, for military records, retired military records, health records, just about everything.
And as you mentioned that, we didn't start putting Social Security numbers on DD 214 until in the the Vietnam War, after the Korean War. From the Korean War to present, Social Security number are part of that DD 214. But prior to that, you have a service number, and that was it.
Yeah.
And Social Security came around in 1935, so
that RA or U.S. number.
Yep.
And it told on you, whether you
Absolutely.
were regular Army or regular Navy or you were drafted.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And sometimes you might have a veteran who served in World War II and 90-something years old, and you ask him, hey, what's your service number? And that guy just rattled that thing off like he was just in the service yesterday.
Yeah, in my generation, we rattle off our Social Security number
Absolutely.
without thinking.
Yep.
Let's talk for a minute about budgets. Now, the budgets coming out of Washington and for the VA, they've been under a lot of fire lately because there's more veterans. We have more combat veterans. We have more combat veterans who are disabled than ever before since World War II. So we think about how much that budget struggle really has affected some of the programs. Has it affected your office too?
I think budget is always going to be the top of the list of discussion, no matter where you're at. It's either going to be at the county level, the state level, or the federal level. And I know occasionally you have people want to cut the military budget, and I listen to that around. But if a member sign up to serve his country, and they serve his country honorably, I think we owe that person something. So I think that we have to do our best to preserve, those benefits for our veterans, so that budget has to be around to take care of those individuals if they need help.
Is it going to be a struggle to be able to keep our budgets kind of intact, or do you think it's going to smooth out after some of this foolishness in the Middle East stops?
This is just my take, and my opinion is, we have a free country because of our veterans who serve and made a sacrifice to go over and oversee and protect the freedom that we so enjoy. So by them taking that step to serve our country, the leaders of this country has to do their part to make sure that we have enough budget to take care of those veterans when they return home.
What got you interested in this kind of work? How did that transition from being military to suddenly working for the military or with the military?
I love the military, and
No, really?
I love the military.
28
well,
years?
I guess if you say 28 and a half years, you got to love something that, to hang around that long. And the military gave me a great opportunity to serve, and I enjoy it. And, just the opportunity to be out there with comrades, and, and we all carry out the same mission, no matter what branch of service you serve in. We occasionally joke and make fun of some other branch of service, but it's
really?
but it's all in good taste.
It's all in good fun. Good fun.
And I respect that. I respect all my brothers and sisters that wore the uniform that symbolized freedom around the world, and I support that. But what really got me in this line of work is, I served in the military, and I took care of sailors, Marines, and the other branches of service that I worked with in the past. And I got out of service, and I went to work for Social Security Administration, and I feel disconnected because I didn't have the opportunity to sit down and work with fellow veterans who are out of service. So when the opportunity presented itself, I applied and got a job. So I worked in Racine County for approximately 4 years as a county veteran service officer, and I'm very passionate about what I do. And it's not about punching a time clock from 9 to 5. It's about going out there and taking care of the needs of those veterans. And if they walk through my door at 4:59, it is my responsibility to help that veteran, not close the door on them, but sit down and find out exactly how we can help that particular veteran. If it means we there till 6, 7 o'clock, guess what? We're going to take care of that individual. Yep. And the reason behind it is I wore the uniform just like they did. So I understand the struggle, the challenges that they have to go through. So when they come in my office and look and say, hey, what benefits am I entitled to? I have to sit down and navigate, the VA system and find out exactly what this member is entitled to and help them.
And that's quite a transition too, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because you're starting off with someone who's been there, they've done that, they've worn the uniform, they've made the commitment. Now suddenly they're lost.
Yeah.
They're out to sea, so to speak, in just nothing but red tape. How do you navigate that person toward the right direction? Is it, do you have like a check sheet? Okay, do you have this, do you have this, do you have this? Or how do you start that?
It is kind of like a check sheet in a sense. You know, me and my staff and the two other individuals who serve and work in my office have to be accredited. You know, and in order for us to take care of veterans, we might have to know our job. We have to go through training, and it could be at the state level where we have to go to these training twice a year, or at the national level, which you go once a year. And the VA take those accreditation very seriously, and you must be accredited. And if you miss one of those training, you might lose your accreditation, and you're not able to help your fellow veterans. So it's important that we know our job inside out. Or if you don't know it, you better know exactly who to call and ask about helping their veterans. But you can't you can never leave a veteran behind, and you can't turn your back on a veteran or close your door on them. You must help that veterans, and that's part of our position and mission is to take care of those veterans.
When you get a customer who walks in the door and they've just finished their tour of duty, now they're thinking about retiring, or they're thinking about getting out, they're about ready to get a discharge, they've come to you for assistance with resume and things like that. Do they come back and say, hey, you know, I got this job, or I got that job, or this helped me because?
Occasionally they do. I mean, over the years, guys come back, hey, you know, I got a job, I got hired by such and such, and I'm working, you know, for Amazon, I'm working for, you know, Time Warner, or wherever the case may be. Yeah. And they're excited that they're back in the workforce and they're working. And we're excited for them as well, because we want to make sure those individuals get back into the workforce. If they're not working, then sometime, you know, they might run into some financial difficulty, and then you spend a lot of time trying to navigate or help them the best way you know how with financial assistance. Yeah,
and that's a tough road to hoe too.
Yep.
When you're looking at how much a veteran has put up with, I mean, they put up with the long separations, they put up with just about everything imaginable. How is it that we can show them that bright face, that big grin, and say, this is what you got to do, or here's what I would recommend, or this is what program is available to you? So how do you find those programs to be able to bring them all in?
And Jeff, it's important that you ask that question, because when you sit in my office and a veteran approach you and say, hey, what benefit am I entitled to? You try to listen a lot, you know, and you try to listen and find out exactly, you know, what is the veteran needs are, and then you can kind of like steer that person in the right directions. Normally, I become very intrusive about asking some key questions to find out exactly, hey, where did you serve? Were you injured in service? You know, if they say I was injured in service, I got shot in the leg or whatever, then I find out is a member receiving some form of disability compensation. So you kind of ask a lot of these questions just to figure out the benefit that member might be entitled to, which is very important.
And thinking of that, I spent 20 years active duty Army. I escaped with all my fingers and toes and half of my wits, so I feel pretty good.
Absolutely. Whenever you can walk away and you got 10 fingers and 10 toes, you're doing good.
Half of your wits. You got to have half of your wits.
Half of your wits, you're right.
Well, that's it for another edition of that's it for another edition of Shaking Up Kenosha. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.